I can't believe I did that. I went through and started talking and doing demos, and I didn't press record. So we're going to do this again. So we're going to texture another piece using this graph right here. So let's make sure I have everything wrapped up how we did. So we have texturizer custom graph here, and we're going to go to File, New Substance, and metallic roughness is fine. So we've got a new graph in here, and it just updated on our object. So to texture another object, we need another object and materials. So where that stuff's going to be is, of course, on my desktop. And we're going to go to here. Let's go ahead and just do the upper body. I'm going to grab the OBJ and the targets, and we're going to drag those into this unsaved package here and link them. Okay. And now that we have those resources, if I double click upper body, that's going to kind of reset the scene here, and I want to make sure I go to materials and make sure we have physically based. That's good. And I'm also going to drag in our maps here that we baked. So these maps right here were baked for this particular object. Now, in order to texture this thing, we have to use our FPS Female Texturing. So if I double click this one, since we put in all these custom input parameters for the end user, if I now go back to our new graph, grab FPS Female Texture thing, drag it in here, you're going to see it has all of these nodes that's asking the end user, hey, go ahead and plug your stuff in. So material ID, we'll go ahead and plug in. Curvature, we can go ahead and plug in. And you're going to see as I'm plugging these things in, if we double click this node, these will start updating with actual finished looking textures. So we're going to plug in our normals here. We're going to plug in our position map. Oh, we don't have a position map. Forgot we left that out. Delete you. And we're going to plug in our world space map here. And ambient occlusion is up at the top. Forgot about you. Now, that's a good point. That's a good point. You see how this is all kind of jumbled? If you want to, you can actually go back into this parent graph. So I'm going to right click. Well, you can double click the texture customizer thing and it'll bring it up, or a little faster way to go is to right click, do open reference, and now we can just switch back and forth between these two. This one, I don't know what that is. So we're back in here. If we double click this parent graph and scroll down, you can see your input your input images here. You can actually swap these around. So right now material ID is first, curvature is second. So if you want to make it so your ambient occlusion is first, just go into here and drag this ambient occlusion up to be first and then save. And it probably won't update in here, so if you delete this and then re-drag it out, now ambient occlusion will be first, and now it's in a little bit better order. So ambient occlusion, but still a little bit out of order. Material ID, but I really don't care about that too much. Curvature, now you're seeing as it's having to kind of calculate as it goes through. If you want to kind of speed up the process a little bit, what you can do is go to Tools, Suspend Engine, and then while you're just kind of plugging and playing with these parameters, it won't slow down, and then when you're ready for it to start calculating through the graph, you can certainly do that. And now with this one, I'm going to go ahead and hit spacebar, do a new output, double click, and we'll give it a usage of ambient occlusion. And I'm not going to bother labeling because it's too late and I'm lazy. So I'll go ahead and plug these in. And if I want to view these on my object, of course, I have to go to View Outputs in 3D View. Now, because I suspended the engine, it's no longer calculating. So you got to go to Tools, Unsuspend the Engine, and that Shift Escape is the hotkey. And now it's going to calculate all of these parameters in here to go through this thing and then be spit out with our base color, and everything is textured. Cool, huh? So for display, I'm actually going to turn off the grid. And just something cool that I was playing with earlier before I realized I wasn't recording is we can actually go ahead and drag in from the 3D view over here. You can grab a different environment map, so you can plug these things in. And if we hold down Shift and left click, we can move the light around. But if we go to Scene Edit, and of course we can turn background on and off, but we can also do this turns, and as we're rotating the environment map, it's actually updating because this is image-based lighting. So it's lighting our object with the image. So that's pretty cool. But if we double click our graph right here, we're going to see we have no instance parameters, and we know how lame that is because that's part of the power of Substance, is you can actually go through and start putting in instance parameters onto these objects to have stuff exposed to the end user. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of that. So I'm going to go back to the female texture thing, and I'm going to go ahead and do Tools, Suspend Engine, so it moves a little bit faster because I don't want to like change something and have it calculate all the way through and update while I'm just kind of messing around. So one thing I'm going to do that's really obvious is if I go over here to my metallic mint, I don't have anything exposed for this group right here. So if I want to say, you know what, if I want to change metallic mint to another color, what I can do is I'm going to have to go open reference on this one and expose this one. So this is going to be like Inception. I'm actually going to go all the way down to this node, expose it up to the graph above this one, expose that up to the end user, and then they'll have the ability to change their color. So right off the bat, we've done this before. Expose, output color is a fine name. Double click this parent graph, scroll down. Output color, let's go ahead and give it a label. We'll call this metallic colored metal. Colored metal. And we won't give it a group, but we can if you want to. So now that's labeled, we can hit Control Save. So it's metallic green has been updated. So we're going to go back to female texture thing. We've double clicked this one. This has been updated to have a color metal parameter option selected. Now, if I change this right now, in fact, let's do it. If I change this to orange, and then we go to Tools, Unsuspend the Engine, all that's going to do is change the metallic green to orange, which is cool, but I want to let the end user decide what that is. So I'm going to change this back to just a color green, and we'll call this our default. And of course, it's taking a little while, so I'm actually going to go in here and we'll do like a desaturated mint green here. So this is going to be our default color. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Tools, Suspend Engine. Now I have to double click this node and go, for this colored metal, I am going to expose you. Output color is fine. I'm going to double click this parent graph. Go down here and we have an input parameter now. It's labeled colored metal, just how it's kind of inherited that. The default is green, so that's cool. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Save for our texture custom. And now if we go to our unsaved package here, our new graph, here's our metallic mint green. We don't need that anymore. So here's our new graph. We're just going to go back over here. If we double click this one, now we have colored metal exposed to the end user. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oh, well, we don't need to save. We're just testing. So I'm going to go to Tools, Unsuspend the Engine. And that's going to recalculate my nodes. And if you want to make sure what you're seeing on the screen is valid, you can go View Outputs in 3D View. So it's updated. So now if I change this one, the end user, while they're texturing their object, can go in here, double click on your node and go, hey, I want this colored metal to be baby blue. And boom, it's updated. So go back in here, you can expose how much dirt where they have. So if we go over here to dirt, and we can say, hey, the dirt level default is 0.36. Let's go ahead and expose dirt level. And let's go ahead and expose, let's go ahead and suspend our engine. Go in here and wear level, we'll go ahead and expose this. And sun bleach, we'll go ahead and expose the sun bleach level. Name it. And one more thing, let's go ahead and expose how, what do I want to expose? Like the color of the plastic eyes? No, that's lame. Let's see if we can expose this material transform here. So with this material transform, I'm actually going to expose this whole matrix. So I'm going to go here, expose, and we'll call this bumpy matte transform. Okay. Yes, thank you. So now that I've done all that, I'm going to hit Control S, go back to our new graph, double click it. And now this is a little bit unorganized. So what I'm going to do is all this wear, so here's a wear level, and then we have a level that isn't even labeled, and then we have a transformation. What I'm going to do is put all of this wear into one node. So I'm going to go back to my female texture thing, double click the parent graph here, scroll down. So we have wear level, which is for dirt. So I'm going to label this one dirt level. And we have sun bleach, so I'm going to label this one and I thought we exposed our metal edge wear level. I'm going to clear this one and I'm going to expose it again, and we're going to call this metal leather. Double click. There it is, dirt level, sun bleach transform, and another wear level for metal. So we'll call this metal wear. Okay, so now what we can do, we can also organize these. So let's go ahead and put all of our wear up here. So we'll do colored metal first, and then metalware, sun bleach, and dirt level. I want dirt to be first, metalware second, sun bleach third. And in all of these, I'm actually going to put these in a group called wear. Copy this group name. Oops. Copy this group name. Go back down here to metalware. Go ahead and put this in the same group. And go down here to sun bleach. Put this in the same group. Close these up. And transformation, we'll go ahead and put this in its own group called tiling. And color we're just going to leave out. So I'm going to hit Control S to save it. Go back to our new graph, double click this, and now it's a little bit more organized. So we've got our colored metal just sitting here, we've got our dirt level here, and we've got our tiling here, so we can go in here and we can just tile this thing however we want. So just a really quick, easy way to kind of organize your stuff. And one more thing I want to talk about is parent graphs and sizes. So right now, it's kind of hard to explain. It's not really hard to explain, but let's see if I can do it. Right now, if you double click on these nodes and you look up here, you're going to see that we have this little thing up here. And by default, this node is set to relative to input, which basically means if you have a bitmap in here that is a 4096, let's see if we can do that. Well, if you have, let's go ahead and just do something like that. So I'm going to take a resource out of here. I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to make just a blank output here. And I'm going to plug this one in. But first, I need to go to Tools, unsuspend the engine, so it's going to calculate some stuff. Speaking of speed, you're going to see all these little milliseconds. That's how slow these nodes are. If we go to this new graph, you're going to see this one takes a pretty long time. So you can kind of optimize your graphs a little bit to kind of speed it up. But, so I plug this one in. And we double click this one. This one is set to absolute, which means it just has a value. So right now, this value is up all the way cranked up to 4096. And this output right here is just inheriting that output. So if I click this node and hit spacebar and hit a levels, and I double click this one by default is set relative to input. That basically means it's a 4096, it's going to inherit a 4096, and it is going to output a 4096. However, if we take this one and I change this run from 12 down to 11, so we're going to make this a 2048 by a 2048. Because it's absolute, it's just a 2048 by 2048 now, so I've just sized it down basically. And because this one is relative to input, it also inherited 2048 by 2048, and it output a 2048 by 2048. So it just kind of passed that right on through. However, if I change this levels to be something else, say relative to parent, what that's going to do is allow the parent graph to dictate how big this is. So now right now, if I double click parent, because the parent graph, because I double clicked out here, these are the parent graph parameters, because those are set to absolute, it's actually set to 2048 right now. However, if I change this one to be relative to parent, that's going to set this to 0, and it's going to put this at the default of substance, which I believe is 256. I could be wrong. Let's wait for it to calculate. There we go. Yeah. So what does this all mean? That basically means no matter what the user inputs, if you put a node after that that is controlled by the parent, the end user can then dictate the size of it. Now, when we get into I guess maybe even Painter, but like especially Substance Player, the end user will be able to do a little drop-down menu and choose, hey, I want it to be a 1024. Wait, I want it to be a 2048. They can choose those on the fly, and the graph will update because it's set relative to parent. So that's kind of important. So now this 2048, because this level is being controlled by the parent graph, it is set to 256 because that's the default. When Substance is at 0, the default is 256. I believe the default in Player is 512. But so now if I take this parent and I go, you know what, you are a parent plus 1 on both the X and Y. So basically parent times 2. And I double click this, we're going to go from a 2048 to a 512 now. So this is under crash because I was throwing a lot of stuff through there, but that's basically what it's going to do. And because on my desktop there's an autosave folder, I can just grab this texturizer custom that was saved at 1118, so I literally lost 2 minutes worth of work. So now I need to go tell it where the titanium stuff is, so I'm going to go ahead and set. And actually I just had to go up one directory and just repoint it. So yeah, that's fine because we're not actually using those inputs. So if I go to File, New, OK, and I drag out again our texture thing, and I'm going to go ahead and plug in the stuff. All right, back where I started. So we were talking about, we have a 4096. This is the parent graph is set relative to parent. This levels node is set relative to parent. So now the end user can drive the final size. So how do we apply that to our entire graph? I'm going to go ahead and let's go and close these down. What we basically need to do is any node right before the output node, we need to, well, first we need to set the parent graph relative to parent, which we've already done. And we need to set any node connecting to that to also be relative to parent. And so anything that goes before an output node needs to have a relative to parent node. Now if you want to play it safe, you can actually go through all of these and make sure they're all set relative to parent, make sure there's no absolutes or whatever. But really all you need to do is like throw in a null node, which is basically like this levels node here, and make this one relative to, relative to parent. What am I talking about? Relative to input, relative to parent. There we go. So that's relative to parent, that's relative to parent. I'm going to control copy, paste this one, and plug this ambient occlusion into there. Plug that in. So again, this levels isn't doing anything. All it is just setting this relative to parent. So now we've got relative to parent paragraph. These are all relative to parent. Double check. Yes, they are. So now if I save this one, that's the texturizer. We go into our new graph here and double click this one. This one is set relative to input. So now it's calculating, if we plug these ones in, it's calculating 4096. So I'm actually going to set this one to be relative to, let's make this one absolute. And now we can drive, say this one 256. I want this to actually calculate, let's make it a 512 by a 512. And now if we do right click outputs, view outputs in 3D, you're going to see this is a 512, really low res 512 map. So you can calculate that on the fly. Display grid off. As well as if you double click this one and say relative to parent, and the parent graph is set at 2048, this will be set at 2048. I'll just inherit that, and now we have nice high res 2048 textures.